Hey guys, today we're going to talk about something of a bit of a controversial subject. I'm here today with Ro, who's going to be a little bit of a thing, but mostly he's just here for eye candy and say, hey, look, there's actually a reptile in this ranty video. But the controversial topic that I'm going to talk about is feed boxes or feeding in an outside container than the enclosure. So this is a bit of a controversial topic because it's a little bit heated about whether they think it's a good idea or a bad idea. And there's nothing wrong with feeding in the enclosure or in a food container depending on the snake, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So generally, the reason why you would ever want to feed your snake, regardless of whatever species it is outside of its enclosure, exoterra, PVC cage, rack system, whatever, and putting it into another container is basically so that way it will learn to disassociate the container or the enclosure opening up with food. And it'll start to associate the actual box that you're removing the snake from its enclosure and putting it in. Sorry, there's a fly. And it will associate that and the box with food, and then it'll learn to do that versus the enclosure opening up. And then that means that, oh, okay, this might be food. And generally, this is usually done with people who are just getting started or who only have a few snakes. And as I said before, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Totally fine if that's something you want to do. There are a few pluses and minuses to doing that. So as I said before, so a good thing is it learns to disassociate the animal, whatever snake it is, with that. So, for instance, at zoos or working with large monitors or things like that, they do something called target training, where they will put up a different color or shaped object for whatever it is food. The animal comes over to that target or object, whatever it is, and then they get rewarded with the food. And so they'll actually learn to associate whatever that target is with the food reward. And to the point where even animals will, even if you have food sitting there, in one hand, they will go to the target for the food in the other hand. And that's kind of what the point of is just for them to associate the box with getting food, so that way they're not going to have an accidental confusion about a food response or bite from the enclosure, rack system, cage, whatever that is. Some of the negative things about that is it's very stressful to the animal. So just getting picked up, kind of whatever snake it is stressful to that animal. Now, there are plenty of snakes that are completely fine with it. They're very habituated to it and they're very tolerant, like Ro here. He's one of, if not the most tolerant snake that we have in the house. He's just a little albino boa constrictor. He gets used for photo shoots. He gets taken all the time. He's one of the first ones that I'll introduce a kid to who is okay with an actual animal touching them or doing whatever else, because he doesn't care at all. But, if that because that is stressful, that's something that, will cause a snake not to eat. So it's kind of like, and most of the time, most snakes are nocturnal, like colubrids and things like that. They're more active during the day, but a lot of people, they have ball pythons, boa constrictors, and stuff like that. So those are nocturnal animals. During the day, a lot of people say my ball python never moves. Well, it's because it's not. It's nocturnal. It's sleeping. It doesn't have eyelids. It's not closing its eyes, so you can't tell. But it's in its hide. It's in its container. It's sleeping at the moment. So if we're feeding during the day, because that's when we're awake, we open that up, we're waking them awake. We're literally shaking them awake and saying, hey, here, and then putting food in their face. If you're feeding frozen thawed, or if you're throwing in a live rat, or whatever it is, you're literally waking them up and saying, hey, here's food. And then, so that's already jarring enough. And then you're picking up that snake from dead sleep, and then you're putting it into usually a sterile box, which doesn't smell like anything. Maybe it'll smell like rat, and it'll kind of like, oh, what's up with that? But just in general, it's a bit of a stressful situation for the snake, which can cause snakes not to eat. But that is entirely kind of up to the individual snake. So for instance, when we very first got started, we only had a few ball pythons and then a boa constrictor. We were doing outside of the feeding. So we would take a tub, just like this one, just a regular tub, a dark tub with a lid that, not necessarily locking, but that could secure the tub. And we would pull them out of the enclosure and we put them in here. And then we would either put a live rat if it was a live eater or a mouse, or we would offer the food with tongs, because, we're trying to disassociate our hands or whatever else for confusion with food, and then we would feed in the box. Once they completely ate the rat, then we would put it back in its enclosure. That was working for a little while, But eventually, once we started to get more snakes, number one, it takes a lot longer to do that. So if you're a breeder, if you're a person who has a very large collection, that just for the, just for time and feeding wise, that starts to eat up a lot. It takes a whole lot. You need a lot of different containers if you're feeding more than 2 or 3 snakes at a time. And you definitely don't want to feed in the same container. So that's something that you wanted to think about. And then it started to be, a lot of the snakes really didn't want to eat in the container. It was stressful for them. It was jarring. They started to go off food even for a couple weeks at a time because it was so stressful. We mostly had ball pythons. They're a little bit notorious for that, where if they do get very stressed out, they just go, no, I want to get comfortable again. So that was something that why we decided to stop doing that. Like I said, the biggest thing about doing the feeding outside of the enclosure in its own thing is just for them to not confuse you with the opening of that cage with food. There are some species of snakes that are more likely to, regardless of how you're feeding them, they're still going to rocket out of that enclosure. For instance, a lot of king snakes and even some carpet pythons, when I open up that cage, like our Brooks king snake, he's in a 4x2 enclosure. We open up that cage, he's shooting out, regardless if I'm just trying to give him water, if I'm trying to interact with him, if I'm giving him food. That's just what he does. After he figures out, oh, okay, this is food time, he usually calms down right away. But that's the biggest reason why people in general will do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And just like there's nothing wrong with that, there's nothing wrong with feeding in the enclosure. It is 100% up to, number one, the confidence and ability of the keeper. If they're comfortable with that, if they are more concerned about, getting struck and getting tagged by the snakes in general, then yes, feeding in a box might be something a little bit better. But, if a lot of the snakes are stressed, if they are stressing out, they're not eating, then maybe consider not feeding in a box or letting them sit a lot longer in the food container might be okay, but not too long because, outside of their little micro habitat that is the enclosure, it gets really cold and dry and da-da-da-da-da. But whatever may have you. Basically, the whole point of this is to say, here's a good way to feed them. Here's another perfectly fine way. There's nothing wrong with either of those. So to say that one is okay and one is not isn't really correct. It's 100% up to the keeper and the actual animal. If the animal is eating in the box, then it's not going to work anyway. So this is just the occurrence of what it is, how we keep, how we have to feed these guys. And if a person or hobbyist keeper, whatever, does it one way, but the animal's eating, it's not stressing out, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And if a person is feeding in the enclosure and they're okay with sometimes that confusion of a food response, that's perfectly fine too. It's 100% up to the hobbyist, the keeper, whoever it is who's feeding the animal, and then the animals themselves. And that's really all I wanted to was just to talk about. We don't need to bicker and say one's wrong, one's right. It's 100% variable and dependent on the animal, how that wants to go. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Once again, we want to thank Ro for being a good little model for today. I know probably people are getting a little tired of the rainy videos, so at least we'll have a boa constrictor in this one. So hooray, good job, buddy. You're so good. Hope you guys did get some good information from this. More than likely, you've probably already heard about feeding a snake and doing anything like that. Regardless of how you do it, I'm not going to do a whole lot of care videos because there are a lot of good people out there who do good care videos. And let's be honest, if you're watching my videos or subscribed to me, you're probably subscribed to them. If you did have any actual wonders or curiosities or concerns about how the actual care and keeping of individual species, just hit me up and I can send you a link down to them, or I can give you an actual answer just for how we do it. I don't want to give out the actual care like guides and videos, except for when I'm actually going to be selling a snake to a person. Then I want to give the care guide, just because everyone's husbandry is a little bit different, and I want to say this is the only way to do that. So I'll put it out to a lot of other people to do a very good job, and people who I'm confident to say that they're going to do a good job. This is who you should go to if you're curious. Once again, hope you enjoyed this video. You got some good information out of it. I know I ramble. Sorry. We'll try to keep these videos a little bit shorter for the most part. If you have any questions, comments, let me know down below. Hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. We post there all the time. That's the best way to get a hold of me. Please share your passion with your friends, your family, your communities. I'm trying to, sorry, buddy. I'm trying to interact a little bit more on social media, on my local Facebook groups and stuff like that too, just because I think it's a good idea to try to have our community a little bit more cohesive in general. And whether you are into reptiles or not, that's always a good thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. Having a good community that's open, honest, and works real well together is great for regardless of what it is. Once again, thank you so much for watching this. Please subscribe if you can. Hope you have a great day, and I'll check you next time.